Hi, welcome to Duality Unfolding. I am Kathy. This reading that I have for you is about moving on and moving forward. So there are essentially 5 groups to choose from. If you have watched any of my other readings, I usually offer my own reading at the end, which is what this card is for. But if you feel inclined to watch that reading out of curiosity, that's why it's there. Or if this card, the imagery resonates for you and you want to choose that for your reading, you are welcome to do so as well. As always, you're welcome to choose to watch as many readings as you like. I picked the Six of Swords card for each of the groups because that is the card that symbolizes moving on and moving forward. So I will show you each group. So group number 1, this is the Six of Swords card, or the deck that we'll be using that this card came from. This is for group number 2. Group number 3, group number 4, and group number 5 / my reading. So again, feel free to take all the time that you need. You're welcome to watch as many readings as you would like, and I will see you in your readings. Hello, group number 1. Welcome. Thank you so much for watching. So this is your reading on moving on and moving forward. So this is the Six of Swords card that you chose. And this is from the Vox Arcana Tarot. And so I've used cards from this deck as well as the, what's it called? The Power of Surrender deck and the Dream Ritual Oracle deck. So this is a little different format than the way I usually read. In the past, it's been me on camera, but I wanted to kind of switch it up. One, because it's easier and faster for me to read this way, but also so that you get a chance to see kind of how I read and you get to see all the cards together, because I feel like sometimes when I'm able to see all the cards together, I can see like an overarching kind of theme or message in a way that like you're not able to if I'm just showing you kind of one card at a time. So yeah, that. All right, so let's get into your reading. The first card that I'm going to focus on is this card at the center, which is the kind of issue or the focus. And so for you, the card that came up is the Page of Pentacles. And so pages are messengers. They can be psychics, mediums, communicators. They can be a person bringing a message, or it can just be a message that's coming forward. Pentacles are about time, energy, and money. And so the thing that you're being asked to move on from is like not giving yourself enough credit for your time, energy, money, talents. Pages are typically in the, kind of medieval hierarchy of things. They're younger people, but we can see with this page that, this person has like a really kind of sweet, tender energy, right? Like they are holding these 2 birds, and this bird's kind of pulling at their necklace, at this pentacle that they wear. And, the person just kind of has a smile on their face, like just this kind of, gosh, like it's like this really tender adoration for this little bird. Like to me, this feels like what your energy is, where it's like things don't really ever bother you, which is lovely. I think that's a beautiful temperament as someone that I feel like I'm a little bit neurotic, so lots of things bother me. Like when I see people that are really kind of like easygoing and unbothered and like always kind of see the bright side of things, like I feel like that's such a beautiful temperament, except for when people mistreat these Page of Pentacles people, right? That the people that are really tender and kind-hearted, when they get mistreated and they have this temperament, it's also like, oh, it's fine, it's not a big deal. Like I feel like this kind of Page of Pentacles person will give everyone else the benefit of the doubt. And I think I've mentioned it in another reading that like what it means to give someone the benefit of the doubt is to allow someone else to benefit from our self-doubt. But like there's no reason for you to doubt yourself, right? And in the same token, there's no reason to vilify the people that try to take advantage of you. But, you know, in the same vein of not being bothered by things, I think that in that not being bothered by the way that people take advantage of you or mistreat you or kind of even just mishandle you, you're being invited to move on from that, because as someone that has just this really beautiful, tender heart, like you deserve to be valued and loved and cherished the way that you kind of value and love and cherish these kind of, I don't want to say little people because that sounds terrible, but like you're able to find like the beauty and the goodness in everybody, and you deserve to receive that in return. Like you deserve to be around people that treat you with the same tenderness as you do everybody else. And so the thing that you're being invited to move on from is undervaluing yourself, devaluing yourself, putting other people before you when it comes to proper care and treatment and the way that you see value. I hope that makes sense. Like these are really kind of like weird, tangible terms for like talking about like our value as people, right? But I think because it's earth energy, pentacles are earth energy, there is very much like this kind of tangibleness to it, if that makes sense. So the internal influence that you're not aware of is this Chariot card. And so the Chariot is the ruler of Cancer. That's why we've got this little crab here. It's also got a lot of water energy to it, which is like this heart energy, and even the moon, which is also ruled by Cancer. And so we've got this little mermaid here, and she's, you know, in this kind of chariot, you know, and she's got these seahorses that are pulling her, but they're pulling her in two different directions. And so it's very hard for let's say a horse-drawn carriage or even a car, if the tires are facing in two different directions, like you're not going to go anywhere, right? So there's this kind of, I don't know if it's an indecision or if it's like this, it doesn't feel like a lack of focus, like mentally, it feels like a lack of belief in really, again, like what you deserve. Like, do I put everyone else first, or do I really like go inward and look at what I want and what I deserve? And you can see like both of these little seahorses, they're both kind of bummed out, right? They're both a little bit sad. Even she's a little bit sad. And so I think that like internally you're kind of dealing with, how do I move forward? Like, how do I move on? How do I like take that first step of moving forward with the belief that I deserve better than what I've experienced and like what kind of relationships I have around me. And so I just want to acknowledge that that's kind of heavy energy to be in. And I would venture to say that you've probably been in that energy for most of this year, because this is a Chariot year. This is the number 7 card. And like, if you add up 2023, you know, 2 + 2 is 4 + 3 is 7. So that's how we get that it's a Chariot year. It's a 7 year. That, you know, this Chariot energy, because it's associated with Cancer, it's a very internal energy. It's a very kind of emotional, introspective. It can be kind of intense. As a Cancer sun, it can be kind of intense energy to like deal with feeling all of the feelings that you have inside of yourself, but also probably feeling all of the feelings of the people that are around you. And this might be something that's new for you. This might be something that like you are used to, as like you're probably an empath, but it might feel different this year than it has in years past. And so I just want to acknowledge that like this is kind of what you're kind of dealing with on the inside. It's something that like other people don't see. It's something that you might be processing like on your own, especially with these phases of the moon. You know, the moon card is very much related to the things that happen in the dark, which like when we think of the darkness, we can think of it as like our internal self, like our own internal world, because it's dark to the people that don't know us. It's the things that we don't share with other people, not dark like negative, you know what I mean? Like it could even be like kind of shadow stuff, that like things that we're learning about ourselves that were in the shadows that like we weren't necessarily always aware of, you know, because I think as we kind of go inward and do more of that introspection work, like we can learn parts of ourselves that we didn't realize were there, right? We didn't realize that that was something that like was important to us because maybe it never had been before, and it really is now. Yeah. I'm kind of looking at this Six of Swords card too, and just kind of seeing that like the movement is happening when the sun is setting, right? So like the typical Six of Swords card, like it's usually like in the daylight, or they're moving towards like kind of a rising sun. So to me, this feels very much like setting sun energy, but also it could be that it's, you know, rising sun. But the setting sun energy kind of makes me feel like you're getting towards the end of this journey. Like I would even venture to say that like the thing that you're moving on from, that you might have been doing the work of like moving on from these people for quite a while. And I feel like it's the end, not just because of the sunset, but because of the butterflies, right? That butterflies go through this process of like they're caterpillars and they make their little cocoon, and then they are, you know, in that cocoon, they're kind of cooking and baking and changing. And then once they finally come out as butterflies, they got to, you know, kind of stretch their wings, build those muscles, get dry from all the goo. And these butterflies are flying, you know, so I feel like this is just kind of indicative of being at the end of this journey, right? That like these people are really almost there. And I hope that gives you like some support and comfort, that like, I see you, I feel you, that you've been in this for a while. And that's a lot for someone with like a really tender heart that puts other people first. It's a lot to deal with. It's a lot to be with. The thing that you are aware of is this Nine of Swords card. And so we've got this kind of feminine warrior, but she looks blind, right? Like her eyes are white. And so the Nine of Swords card, my initial thought of the Nine of Swords card is like the concept of the nightmare. And that like in the traditional tarot, it's a picture of a woman laying in bed and there's 9 swords on the wall and she's got her head in her hands. She's crying. And the swords cards are about the mind, you know, and that sometimes we can create our own nightmares, right? We can create our own like worst fears. We can make them happen. We can worry about them so much that they actually manifest, or we can just kind of get lost in like our own minds, like spiraling in worry. But the thing that I really like about this card is the fact that she, like, her eyes are white. And like when we think about people that have lost their sight, or people that are not sight abled, is that they have to rely on other senses, right? Like they rely on their sense of hearing much more. They might rely on their sense of, I don't want to say touch, because I don't feel like that's the right word for it, but it's almost like this sense of feeling things around you. So it's almost like when you're at the grocery store and you're waiting in line and you can feel someone has like kind of walked up behind you, you know, or maybe you hear them, you hear the cart kind of being pushed, or the basket being pushed up behind you. And like when there's a person, it's almost like you can kind of feel someone standing behind you. And so I feel like with this Nine of Swords card, like, even though it's been really hard, like to deal with what you've been dealing with, it has created your awareness of another kind of sense that you have, right? That like in the times that your brain is like, this is so bad and it's the worst, and it's kind of just spiraling and going crazy the way that brains can, like you're able to go inward, you know, and kind of use that like inner sight, because that's, you know, her outer sight isn't really there in this picture, but she's got this inner sight, and also her holding this sword, because it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This sword that's kind of being pulled away that she's holding makes me think of the Ace of Swords. So if we shift the energy of this card, she is holding this Ace of Sword, and is a new beginning. And then with the Eight of Swords, like the traditional Eight of Swords is this woman that's blindfolded, much like our blind woman here. And she's surrounded behind her by swords, but because she's blindfolded, she can't see that she's actually not trapped, that it's just kind of this U shape behind her. And so I feel like it's almost like this Nine of Swords, instead of being a nightmare card, is really the Eight of Swords, which is this card that's about like having a sense taken away from us and really having to tune in. And so like if we were to really kind of put ourselves in the place of that Eight of Swords, of this woman, you know, like maybe she feels trapped and she can't see a way out, but it's like, you know, if we just get still and quiet, we get a sense for what's happening, right? So like, and this is like a weird exercise, but like, bear with me. Like imagining if you had been dropped into a place, you know, like you realize you got kidnapped, you realize you got taken, you realize you got put someplace, and you are blindfolded, and maybe your hands are tied, you know, and once you're able to kind of get still and quiet, you know, like what do? You're going to listen. Is anybody around me? You know, and it's going to take some time. Like you might even call out like, hello, is anybody there? Or you might not, you know, but you're listening, and like maybe you don't hear anything, or maybe you hear like running water, you know, and then like once you kind of get that sense or feeling that nobody's around you, maybe you try to kind of move your wrists and you realize, oh, I'm not tight as I thought I was. Okay, let me pull down this blindfold because I can move my wrists. And then when you gain your sight, when you look around, like you're just there by yourself. And it's like, okay, I'm not really trapped, and I have 8 weapons around me. You know, I have my senses back. I have my freedom. I have these weapons that I can use. How do I move on? How do I move forward? So, you know, in this time that you've been really introspective, like there's this external awareness that you have all of these tools and all of these abilities that you didn't have before you decided to, or before you came to the realization that you needed to move on. And this is power. Right? When we realize like that I have my wits about me, I have, you know, weapons, talent, you know, maybe not weapons, but like talents and skills that you can use, you know, to protect yourself, to move forward, that's a really positive place to be. The next card is the understanding. And so, sorry, the next card is the resolution. And so this resolution is really tied into this Nine of Swords card. It's the High Priestess. And so the High Priestess is about our inner knowing, right? And so with this Nine of Swords, like you really had to kind of go inward and like realize and analyze a lot of things. You had to tune into your own intuition. With this Moon card, that was already happening, right? That's been happening. That's part of kind of this internal process that you're going through. Your intuition is growing. You're learning how to use your intuition. And now like you're coming into this space of being the High Priestess. And so the energy of the High Priestess is that she knows what she knows. Like she's got this key, which symbolizes truth. She's got this ankh that symbolizes life. She's got this book of like knowledge and wisdom. And also she's, you know, she's doing a little bit of side eye, but she's very aware, right? Like kind of always, I don't want to say always looking around, but like that sense, that inner sense, that intuition is always collecting information, like collecting, seeing, observing, taking note. And it's not a hypervigilance. It's almost like, it reminds me, sorry, I got excited. It reminds me of The Matrix, like when Neo or any of the people on the ship in the first movie, when they get plugged in and, you know, they have that like big cable plugged into the back of their heads and they get all these uploads. I feel like that, the way that happens like so quickly for them, and like they're not really even aware of it. They don't really have to do anything. They just have to like lay there and like allow their brains to absorb the knowledge and then for their bodies to rest afterwards. I feel like that is the epitome of like High Priestess embodiment. That like the high priestess, you know, like we can see her demeanor is really calm. Her eyes are to the side, you know, but she's always kind of getting these uploads or downloads of information. She's always receiving like input from the universe. Like she's always receiving this knowledge. Like this is just the way that she lives. And I feel like the resolution is that you you kind of just have to be open and accepting to like that you are in this phase right now, right? And so understanding that there's going to be a lot of stuff that's like coming in for you. There's probably already been a lot of stuff coming in with this like internal kind of connection to your intuition, like having to tap into your intuition instead of focusing on the kind of chaos that's around you in the external world. But understanding that like you are going through, or you have been through, a really significant up-leveling. Because like I said, I feel like we're kind of at the end of this journey. So like you've been in this and you might not really understand like what's happening. And I think that's why kind of the resolution is so important. Like this acceptance that like, welcome to being an intuitive person. Like welcome to, you're up leveling. Welcome to learning that your gut instinct is truth. Learning that those people that your first intuition is to give them the side eye because you don't really trust them, that is your truth. That is accurate. Like your gut instinct, I think you're going to start to go through this process. And like I went through it too when I first like realized that I was intuitive. And sometimes I still have it happen now where it's like I will get a gut feeling about something and then my brain is like, I don't know, we don't have any logical reason to believe that. And then I'm like, okay, I guess I'll go with logic. And then something small will happen and I'm like, I should have trusted my gut. Like it knew. I didn't listen. And so to me, those are little recalibrations, right? Because I think that like the times that I'll give you an example, like I had this really kind of profound, bizarre thing happen when I used to live in San Antonio. I was driving down one of the streets. I was going to the grocery store and it was a 3-lane road. And I was in the right lane because I was going to have to turn like maybe a mile or two down the road. And I'm kind of a lazy driver. So if I know I'm going to have to turn, I just get in that lane. Like I'm just like, I don't want to have to like get over last minute. Like I don't want to fight anybody. I'll just get in the lane. So I'm in the right lane. So I'm going to have to turn in a couple miles. And I get this, like I hear this voice and it kind of, I don't know how to explain it. Like I heard it in my brain, but it wasn't the normal voice that I think in. I'm not a crazy person. Maybe I am, whatever. But the message that I got was move. And so I looked and to my left, and there's a car there and it was louder and it was like, move. And in my mind, I'm thinking back to like, hold on, I'm not going to merge into somebody else. Like I'm having this conversation with this like voice in my mind. So I'm crazy. And so I heard it for a third time. It was very aggressive and loud. I was like, move. And so I finally moved over. And like right as I changed lanes, the car in front of me slammed into the car in front of him because he didn't have any brake lights and the car in front of that car had made a right turn. And so it's like if I wouldn't have moved, I would have like smushed those two cars. And I mean, we were going like 45 miles an hour. Like we weren't going slow. Like this was a pretty significant accident. And so as I'm moving over, I see this person hit the car. Like the person I was behind hit the car in front of him who hit like, I think, no, he didn't hit the guy that was turning. But so the guy that I was behind hit the guy in front of him that didn't have brake lights. And so that freaked me out. Like I've never been right next to a car accident. I've been in a car accident. 10 out of 10 would not recommend. Also would not recommend being next to a car accident. That's kind of crazy. And it was really loud, and like just kind of like small t traumatic. And so I ended up, pulling over before I got to the grocery store, which is not very far away. I ended up getting over in the left lane and then getting over in the left turn lane and turning off. And I pulled over and then I just cried because what it felt like was that like hearing this like big loud voice that was trying to protect me. It almost felt like if God was like this giant being in the sky and it just snatched me up in its hands and it was like, hey, love you, and gave me like a little boop. put me down and was like, okay, go on. Like, it was just very overwhelming to have this experience as someone that had never considered myself intuitive. Like, I'd never kind of gotten messages or downloads or anything before. And so I share that story to let you know that, like, if you're worried that you're not going to hear your gut when really big things happen, don't worry, that's not going to happen. Take it from me. But also, like, that experience was so profound for me because what happened was that it was like, okay, now you know that you have this direct line to connect with source, which all of us do, but I didn't believe that I did. I didn't believe that I was like special or different or like aware enough. But it's like, now that you know that you have this, I need you to use it and like go out in the world and read cards like the hippy dippy chick that you are. And not saying that that's how everyone's gifts are used, but I just want to share that, like, in case you're worried that, like, you know, what if you do it wrong, or what if you don't listen, or what if you miss some big thing? Like, you can't miss a big thing. And that when those small things come up where you're not sure if you should trust your gut or not, it's okay if you don't trust your gut, you know, because what will happen is you're going to see after the fact that, like, oh, this little small thing, you know, like, that was just this recalibration that, like, hey, you really do need to trust your gut. And, like, it's okay that, you know, like, that, you know, your gut said to leave 15 minutes earlier than you would have, and you trusted your brain, which said it'll be fine, and then you got there 30 minutes late. It's not going to be like a deal breaker. Maybe you have to reschedule an appointment. Maybe you missed part of a meeting. You know, you don't get in trouble, but it's like, ugh, that was uncomfortable. And okay, now I know that, like, my gut is trustworthy, right? Because we live in a world that teaches us that, like, you can only trust in, like, what's tangible and real, and also what other people tell you is trustworthy. And what you're learning is that you really can trust yourself. You really can trust your higher power. You really can trust your higher self. That these things are all invested in what is for your highest, best good, as well as, like, the highest, best good of those around you. So that's your resolution, the action that you need to take, like the way ahead. And then this last tarot card is understanding. And so this card is the Four of Cups. And so we've got this, let me see, we've got this little kind of, I don't know if they're like a warrior or an elf or what they are, but they have this knife in their chest, right? And they are very much like wounded, battle worn, you know, there's a patch over their eye. And then we've got this kind of little elf king behind them offering them a cup. And so this Four of Cups card is about the energy of it is really kind of this dissatisfaction and disillusionment. And I feel like this comes from this kind of mistreatment of you by the people that are around you. And so it's like when we experience these three kind of spilled cups, it can kind of create this belief system in us that, like, there's no point in asking for things. There's no point in, like, believing what people say because we're only going to be disappointed, right? And so we can kind of see that with, like, you know, this king, like, he's holding this cup, you know, like, really securely, but, like, this little warrior person is just, like, kind of, they are disconnected, right? They are, like, clocked out, like, nope, like, eyes are dull, like, not here. And part of it is the wounding, right? That, like, we've been so wounded and kind of taught that it's not worth it to trust people. But this, you know, this king that's coming in is really representative of, like, the universe, right? That, like, the universe is offering us something that, like, hey, these three might have spilled, or these three might have been disappointments, but, like, you're being offered something. And even if the offer isn't our forever, right? Even if the offer isn't the thing that will solve everything, solve all our problems, like, fulfill our heart for forever, it doesn't mean that it's not worth taking that cup, right? So, like, the understanding is that because you are in this phase of, like, really learning like how to be aware of your gut and your intuition, and learning to trust that like you will know who is trustworthy and who isn't. And I feel like this really tender, loving, gosh, I don't mean any judgment by this. This is almost like a gullible energy, right? Like this Page of Pentacles energy is like, no, everybody's nice. Oh no, they didn't mean it. Like, you know, that benefit of the doubt energy. And I think going through this whole cycle, like believing the best in everyone can leave us like really hurt and wounded. Also, believing the best in just that one wrong person, it can cause us like some really significant heartache, right? I mean, I've been there too. Like this, I very much was like this when I was younger, like just very tenderhearted, believed the best in everyone, trusted everyone. And now I am old and bitter and jaded. No, I'm not. Just a little bit, but, but, you know, learning how to trust our intuition, learning how to trust that inner sight, going through these really hard experiences and like seeing the things we don't want helps us learn the things we do want, so that when these cups are offered to us, we can decide like, oh yeah, that looks like something that I want. Or like, nope, that doesn't look good to me. I'll pass that one. Nope, that looks gross. I'll let that one go. Oh, no, thank you. You know, and so just because we're being offered it doesn't mean that we have to take it. But when we are offered something, we should consider it. We should examine it. We should use that intuition. We should use that past experience. We should use that inner trust to see like, okay, is this what I would like? You know? And I think with like all these little animals back here, I feel like these are all these little guides. Like they're all these little guides for this person. And I feel like this card is really kind of this message that like, yes, you have your intuition and yes, you have your knowing, but you also have a lot of guides around you. You have a lot of like ancestral energy. You have a lot of animal spirit energy that's supporting you. So the times that it comes to make those decisions, like when you're doing the consideration, like there's this support to encourage you to like, yeah, look in the cup, check it out, ask if you can see it. Maybe you want a taste test, like, or maybe you just want to examine it a little closer. Like you're entitled to ask for that, but also, in the times that you're not sure, you can tap into that intuition. You can tap into that higher knowing. You can tap into those spirit guides to just ask like, okay, I need a little support. Like, is this the right thing? Is this the best thing? Like, how do I go about this? As well as like, protect me because I'm going to take a risk. I'm going to take this cup and see where it goes. So please just be with me, protect me. Which is really like, I feel like that's, these are both, these two people look the same, right? We've got this young kind of warrior that looks like a page, and then we've got this page here. And it's, you don't have to know everything about everything before you make a decision. And I feel like that applies to all areas of our life. Like we can't know how everything is going to turn out before we decide, but we can figure out if this is for my best, highest good. Do I trust myself to make this decision? Do I need to ask for support? Like, do I need to ask for, some information or advice, like even to apply this to like a real world situation, like, if we are looking for a new job, and we're maybe moving into a new career field, instead of just taking the first job or applying for the first job that comes along or taking the first job that we get an offer for, maybe we ask people that, we know that are in the field, or we kind of go out to like, I don't know, maybe like LinkedIn, or seek out a mentor, or like some kind of online like mentorship, or like even like a college, right? Somebody that like has done this kind of work, and ask, like, is this a good deal? Does this seem like something that's worth my time? Because we don't know everything, and it's okay to ask for help, Yeah. So I just want to say that, like, you know, if the support that we can ask for, it doesn't always have to be kind of in this etheric, like spiritual realm. Like we can ask like real people, you know, for advice, just like you would seek out a financial advisor, you know, or you would maybe compare rates if you're getting a mortgage. That, you know, like you don't have to feel the pressure all on yourself to always make the perfect decision. So I'm gonna leave that there. The thing that you're being encouraged to let go of is this surrender denial card, or to surrender denial. So again, we've got this, you know, blindfolding, this sight removed. And so the message is accept people and situations exactly as they are without denying the difficulties. Then you can see things clearly and make the best decisions. So I feel like this is spot on. And then the thing that you're moving towards is this reflection. And so we've got this moon here again, you know, and so what you're being encouraged to do is just to keep kind of turning inward, and really like returning to that exercise of like introspection. You know, we've got the blindfold, the, you know, eyesight removed, and then even our mermaid, she's got her eyes closed as well as these little seahorses. And so to me, this kind of feels like meditation. I feel like meditation is a form of reflecting, you know, the eyes closed, even journaling, like if that's something that works for you. Like meditation can be, you know, like seeking out guided meditation, like looking for guided meditations on YouTube for like how to connect with like your inner knowing, how to connect with your intuition. It can also just be kind of sitting for a couple moments, you know, no phone, no TV, and just kind of asking yourself, or like thinking about the things that like you've been processing, right? Where it's like, people talk about meditating on an idea or meditating on a concept. So let's say that you wanted to meditate on denial. Like that can be as simple as asking yourself, like, you know, like, are there things that I'm in denial about? You know, and like when we remove the distractions of like the phone and the TV, like any kind of noise, other people around, you know, and kind of just think about like, okay, am I in denial about something? And it's like, okay, well, what does it mean to be in denial? Well, like, am I seeing things clearly, or am I able to see the reality of people? You know, because maybe your intuition is like, hey, such and such isn't really a good friend, you know, and then your mind is like, no, they're a great friend. And it's like, okay, what does it mean to be a great friend? Well, like being a great friend is someone that's like accepting and supportive, like someone that maybe asks how you're doing, someone that really values you. Okay, is that how such and such is? Oh, well, they don't ever ask how I'm doing. They just reach out when they need something. Is that being a good friend? No. Okay, so maybe are we in denial about them being a good friend? Ugh. You know, and so I feel like that's this really simple kind of exercise of like meditating on something, you know, or like you can even like journaling can be meditation. You can walk and meditate. It's just really creating time and space without distractions when you can reflect on things. So group number 1, that has been your reading. If you enjoyed this reading, please give me a thumbs up. If you especially enjoyed the reading, I would love for you to subscribe. If there's any part of this reading that really resonated for you, I would love to hear that, like in the comments. I'd love to hear like what you think of the reading. I hope that this is helpful for you. I mean, that's the reason that I do these readings, like in hopes that like a message resonates for you and that it gives you kind of some clarity to help you like move on and move forward, but also just so that you feel like kind of seen and like understood by a random person on the internet, because I think that connection is really important, and that a lot of us don't realize how many other people are kind of dealing with the same things that they're dealing with. So I just want to say thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye. Hello, group number 2. So if you chose this Six of Swords. It is from the Apparition Tarot deck. And so this is your reading on moving on and moving forward. The thing I think is really interesting about this card is that there's like this altar in the middle. So you can kind of see there's some candles and there's some fruit, and you know, their hands are here, and it's almost like they have their hands kind of spread out, like they're kind of giving this energy, kind of almost trying to connect to their altar about like, how do I move on? How do I let go? How do I move forward? Like, these are the offerings that I'm giving to like my spirit guides, my ancestors, God, source, spirit, universe. And I'm really kind of reaching out to connect to get some guidance on how I move forward. So I don't know if you have an altar, if that resonates for you. I have never really had one until recently, and I actually ended up buying a bookcase to put, like a bookshelf to put all of my tarot decks on, because I am addicted to collecting tarot decks. It's a problem. But I have 3 specific decks that I have at the very top of the bookshelf, and that to me feels like an altar space. Like, it's a reminder of like what I want to focus on, but it's also these really prominent decks that like I like connecting with. I like getting messages from. So I will just share what they are if you're interested. One of them is the Dream Ritual Oracle cards. The other one is the Creative Compass. And then the third one is the Rest deck, which is from Trisha Hershey. So she is known on Instagram as the Nap Minister. And so her account is the Nap Ministry. And so it talks about rest as a form of resistance. And so I just feel like my creativity is something that's become really important to me. Dreaming about my future is really important, and then resting. So if you don't resonate or kind of connect with like this kind of traditional altar of like candles and food, or if you have a cat and you know you can't leave this stuff out because they're gonna mess with it, if they're like my cat, just messing with everything, there's like a little 8-ball, little magic 8-ball, maybe like a little picture. If you don't resonate with all these traditional things, like, you can create an altar space that is yours, like where you can put the things that are important to you. Or if you're part of a culture that does altars, then you're already familiar with it, and you know that you can make your altar any way that you want to. So, this is your reading about moving on and moving forward. So the first card that we have is the Center card, and this is going to be like the issue or the focus. And so this card, the 9 of Cups, is really about wish fulfillment. And so let me see if I can pick this up. I can't pick it up with my nails. The 9 of Cups card is really about wish fulfillment. So we've got this little fairy, but she doesn't have a wand, right? She's got all these like cups around her. She's got all these stars around her, but she doesn't have a wand. She doesn't have a way. Oh no, she does. I'm a liar. She's got her little wand here. I was going to say she doesn't have a wand, so she can't grant our wish, but her wand is very small. It's hard to see. And so this card is about wish fulfillment, and that like you can have the things that you want. Like the things that you're wishing for. This is the bigger message. The things that you're wishing for are not so far out of your reach as you believe. The things that you're wishing for are not so extravagant and like far-fetched, and I don't know, like that's not the traditional way that I would read the card, but I feel like there's kind of this overwhelming sense of like I can't have that. I'm not allowed to have that. Like I'm dreaming too big. I'm wishing too big. I'm being unrealistic, and you're being invited to move away from that belief system. I would say you're almost being encouraged to like dream bigger. And I say that because of this Fool card that's here, but we will get into that. And so the thing you're being asked to move on and move away from is this mindset that tells you that it's not okay for you to dream as big as you want, right? Because I mean, this is a lot, right? We have the fairy, but she's got all these stars here. She's got all these cups. There's a rainbow. There's like little rainbow stuff in every card. Like, look at those cards have sprinkles on them, or maybe they're jewels. Either way, this is extra, right? Like, there's a lot going on. You got someone to grant the wishes. You got all this star sparkle, rainbows, rainbow colored things, like all the cups. And these are they're really like trophy cups. Like, they're not like normal kind of chalices. They're like little trophies. They look like the NHL trophy cup things that they get. I don't follow hockey, so if you do, please forgive my lack of knowledge on what the cup is called. The World Cup, that's soccer. Do they get a cup? I don't know. Anyway, this is this is big, right? Like, this is big and extra and extravagant. And whoever is telling you that you can't dream big and like have these big things, like, you're being encouraged to kind of either move on from listening to that or let go of that belief system if that's what you believe, because you can have it all, whatever all is for you. I know all is different for everybody, but that is really the focus of the rest of this card reading. Just kidding, that's the end. No, just kidding, that's just just the focus. Okay, so the internal influence that you might not be aware of, it might not have shown up for you yet, or it might be something that like other people are not aware of because it's stuff that you're just dealing with kind of inside and like personally, is this High Priestess card. And so the High Priestess card is really about like this inner knowing. But I think for you, it's really more about kind of stepping through a threshold. Like, you're going through a really big internal change that like other people can't see. And I think also like you can't really see what's coming either. Like, that things are shifting, but it's like, what's going on? Like, I know something's changing and I feel fine. I feel okay. But also like, I don't really know like where I'm going. I don't really know like what, like, I think because you didn't initiate this change, it almost feels like, what are we doing? What am I doing? I don't know. I'm just here for the ride. Who's driving the car? I don't know. And I say that because this hand is reaching in, but like, this is all kind of dark, right? But there's like nothing scary here. There's a mirror, which is interesting because this kind of looks like a mirror, and the light is out here. And so this is the unseen. Got this random fish hanging out. To me, this really feels like abundance. And then there's this cup that's like half full, half empty. And so I think like what you're being considered to look at is like your own ideas around like what does success and wish fulfillment look like for you, right? Like, because we can decide like that maybe like your dream come true is to get married, right? I feel like that's like a really common one for a lot of people. Maybe not as much now as it used to be, but maybe like your ultimate wish fulfillment is to get married. And it's like, okay, what does that look like? And like, that's a really big question, right? Like, what does marriage look like for you? What does your dream partner look like? What are their characteristics? Like, what are their qualities? Like, what do they like to do? What do you like to do? Like, and I feel like really kind of reaching and like grasping in the dark, or like kind of searching in these dark spaces. Like, it's going to require some like reflective introspection, like really kind of looking at yourself. Because if your dream husband or wife or spouse is like an outdoorsy person, but you don't like to be outside because of bugs, maybe you need to do a little self-reflection around that. And then when we get really clear on what it is that like success looks like for us, it makes it a lot easier for us to kind of call in and like see like what we like and what we don't like, right? And so like we can use another example of like this wish fulfillment with like success, right? That maybe for you, like career success is a job where you make $75,000 a year. And that like, what do you want to do with that $75,000 a year? Because like, if you're not sure, if you haven't done like that kind of internal like seeking to like understand why you want what you want, somebody else might hear that that's what you want and they're like, oh my gosh, like I would never settle for that much. I have to find a job where I make 150,000. And it's like, oh, well, that's like double what I'm asking for. Should I ask for more? And it's like, I don't know. Should you? Do you want more? Do you need more? Or do you just feel like because somebody kind of rained on your parade that like now you think it's lame and you think that you should change your mind, which I feel like that happens like so much in the world that like maybe we want something in like the dream, or even if like you have this really expansive, like you want to make $500,000 a year and somebody's like, oh, that'll never happen. Like you'll be lucky if you make 75,000. And it's like, if you believe that, then, you know, you're kind of stuck in this like glass half full mentality. And so it's like you can have everything that you want, but you have to get really clear on it. You have to get clear on like what it is that you want. Why do you want it? What do you plan to do with it? What does it look like? You know, which is a lot, and you don't have to rush through it. You have lots of time to do that, because I feel like you're really kind of starting this journey. Like you're starting this journey of realizing that you have to move on from those limiting beliefs about what you can have and what you can't have. But, you know, we can't start the journey if we don't have the details, right? Like the traditional Six of Swords is, you probably saw it in some of the other cards. It's a boat, you know, that has swords in it. And so it's like, okay, if you're ready to move forward, you can't get on the boat if you don't know where the boat dock is. Also, you can't get to the boat if you don't have a ride. You know? So it's like, it's not that you have to get to the boat right away to get to all the trophies. It's like now you're kind of starting to come into this place of like, okay, I can dream, I can wish for all the really big things that I want. And I can start to work on these little tangible steps of like looking inward and really getting to know myself and figuring out like, what does that look like? So that when I get my ticket for the boat and I get on the boat, I'm going exactly where I want to go, not where someone says I should go or like what someone else thinks. So that's the internal influence, or thing that like other people aren't aware of, or maybe like you aren't aware of. Maybe that's just coming in for you now. The external influence is this Fool card. And so the Fool is about new beginnings, you know, and so we've got this this really weird imagery of a person with all these eyes around them and like really big feet, and then, you know, this eye, and like it's just kind of the imagery of this deck is very different, which I think is why I like it. It's also kind of like, it's kind of strange, but it also has some really great messages in it. Like I really love that there's this, I think it's called Telephone, like the game is called Telephone, maybe it's not. But like there's this can and like it's up to her ear and she's listening, but like what are you listening to, right? And it's like this kind of spiral, could be like God, source, spirit, intuition, higher self, like, but as well as all these eyes, right? Eyes represent like intuition, third eye, connecting to a higher source. And so like the thing about the Fool is that they are willing and ready to take big leaps, big steps in a new journey, because they're tapped in and they're tuned into source. They're listening for that external guidance. Like they're tuned into this inner knowing. And so it's not crazy for them to take these big steps, to take these big leaps, because they're tapped in, you know, which is really part of this High Priestess card as well. Like this inner knowing, this connection to spirit, this connection to source, this connection to the unseen and the unknown. And so that's why, like when I said earlier, like that, you know, you want these really big things and you can have them because you're willing to take these big risks. You're willing to take big steps, big leaps. like you're willing to do the big things that you need to do to get what it is that you want. It's just getting really clear on what it is that you want. Because when we take big risks and we're not sure like what we want, that can be a little bit reckless, right? It's like we might know that we want a new car, but if we just take the first car that we see at the first dealership, like that car might not really serve our needs, right? Like maybe we get a little 2-door sports car, but like we have a really big dog and he doesn't fit in there. And then like we can't take him for walks, and like that's no good. We don't like that. The next card is the resolution. And so this is really like a card about like kind of tangible, like action steps that need to be taken, or like how to get like where you're going, how to move forward. And so the card is the Ace of Cups. And so we've got this cup that's just like overflowing, all these things overflowing, this abundance, this fruit, again, kind of a trophy looking cup. And so the Ace of Cups is really just about being open to these new beginnings that are really tapped into our heart. Cups are about emotions, and like being, how do I say this? Because the thing that sometimes like the messages come through and they don't necessarily make sense, like because the thing that came through was like, take a heart risk. What does that mean? And it's like, okay, so I have to translate this. And so like being open to like something new that really like touches your heart, that almost like really thrills you, but possibly doesn't make sense. And so this is not, I'm not saying like sell all your stuff and move to another country. But it might look to other people, to the outside world, as that extreme when you take this heart risk, right? And so I think because you're so tuned in and so tapped in that like if you decided, I don't know, let's say like your heart risk is that you want to try polyamory, right? That you want to try being in a throuple, like if you have people around you that are very traditional, heteronormative, like that might be a really huge, scary risk to them, but that might also be something that like really lights up your heart and is like super thrilling for you, and that like you don't have any qualms about like being in a relationship with more than one person, and like you're not uncomfortable having conversations about sex, safe sex or condoms or birth control or any of these things, right? But like the people that you share this with, they might be like, oh my God, I could never. And it's like, right, you could never, but I'm not asking you to do it. I'm choosing to kind of explore this because it feels really exciting to me, and it feels really fun, and it's something that I want to do. And so I guess that's what I mean by like taking a heart risk, like because I can feel like in my chest, like it feels like this really interesting mix of like a little bit like fireworks, but also like this lightness. So it almost feels like if like fireworks turned into like dandelion seeds that just kind of blew away, which is a really weird thing to say, but it's like this excitement, but this lightness, right? Where there's not like this heaviness, there's not like this worry about it. It's just like, oh, this is an exciting new adventure. Like, I'm just going to try it, and you might feel like maybe for you trying it is just going on a couple dates. And like, you'll see how it goes from there. Or maybe trying it as like being in a full-fledged polyamorous relationship for a couple of years. Or maybe this is what you always will end up wanting to have, but it's like you're in these, like that kind of taking that heart risk is like taking that first step, it's not moving to another country to be in this relationship. It's like seeing if there's people in the area that you live in that maybe you're like on dating sites or however people meet people these days, for you to kind of try it. Or maybe people that are already like in polyamorous relationships and like having conversations with them and asking questions. So being open to like the things that like light your heart up, that like light your heart on fire, but not like heartburn or indigestion, not that kind of fire. Okay, that was a terrible joke. Forgive me. And so the understanding of the reading is this Queen of Swords. And so the Queen of Swords is not usually associated with matters of the heart. She is usually very much focused on like the mind. And she's known for quick wit, a little bit of a sharp tongue, very direct. She does not mess around. But this Queen of Swords, we can see she's got her crown and her sword, you know, even this little dagger at the top of the crown. But the prominent image here is the heart and this butterfly. And so I think the understanding for you is that if you have always been this kind of serious overthinker, calculated, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I feel like the word calculated gets a bad rap. You know, strategic, I feel like that's like the nicer version of the word calculated. If you've always been someone that's like more serious, the understanding is that you really have to open your heart and like allow your heart to take the lead instead of your mind, because there are places that like there's things that your heart will allow you to like blossom and grow and unfold, move forward. Like I'm kind of listing all these things because I'm having a hard time like making words that like can translate what this message is. Like your heart needs to be in the driver's seat, and your mind and your ego and your old mindset needs to go into the passenger seat. You're going through this stage where like all this intuition, it is really becoming much more prominent, and it's because that's the way that your heart gets the information to make the decisions, to make moves, right? That like we use logic for our brains to make decisions, but like intuition is what speaks to our heart, and intuition is how our heart also speaks to us. And so because your intuition is becoming so much more prominent, with your belief that you can have all the things that you want, like your heart's going to start getting really loud. And also like, I think this Ace of Cups is like, there's another YouTube card reader that I really like, Nicholas Ashbaugh, and he talks about how the cups are almost like a satellite dish, right? Where it's like it can turn and focus and like it can receive messages, right? Because of that dish shape. And I feel like with your intuition growing, with this new beginning around heart stuff, your heart is just going to become so much louder than it has been in the past. And your heart is really what's going to lead you to this wish fulfillment, to getting the things that you want. But I feel like this is more of this is like a heads up is what this feels like. Like, hey, just giving you a heads up, like your brain is going to have to take a side seat and your heart is going to need to be in the driver's seat. And that might be uncomfortable for you, but like, that's really the way it's going now, and that like your heart is growing so much bigger that like, if your heart and your brain try to wrestle for the keys, your brain is going to lose. So just just take that imagery for what it's worth. And I say that because of the surrender stubbornness card. I think that like, we live in a world that teaches us that like we have to use our minds. We have to use our brains to make decisions. And so, if that's how you've always operated, it's going to be hard for your brain to kind of step aside. So that stubbornness, I feel like the stubbornness comes much more from the mind than it does from the heart. And so the message for this card is, if you're tensing up or taking a rigid stance about something, gently observe yourself and become more yielding. This will help you communicate more lovingly with others and yourself being more important. in my opinion. So that's what you're being encouraged to release, is like that stubbornness, is your mind wanting things to stay the same as they have been. But if your mind got its way, then you wouldn't believe that you can have all the things that you want, which you can because you are willing to do the work. And then the thing that you are moving towards is empathy. And so even in this card, like this is almost like a little altar, right? Like some stars, a candle, and a glass of water. And so I feel like this empathy is really towards yourself, that like it's like you can you can be kind to yourself, like you can allow yourself to have what it is that you want, and that like you deserve this. And I don't know how to tangibly explain, but like just this imagery, I think I feel like the moon is very much like this nurturing, like divine mother energy. And it's almost like this moon is kind of looking in the window to wherever you are, and I feel like you probably have a connection with the full moon. I know a lot of us do. But when you're under that full moon, or when you can see the moon, especially like if you're tucked in your bed and you have a window where you can see the moon, like to me, it feels like that kind of really nurturing mother energy is like the moon's trying to send you that, where it's like, hey, I just want to remind you that you deserve all the things that you want, that you can have all these things, and that you're like so loved and so cared for and so deserving of all these things that you want. Not just because you're willing to work for them, but just because your heart wants them, because your heart has this little dream about whatever it wants, and that it's ready and it's big and it's loud. And so yeah, group number 2, like this has been your reading for moving on and moving forward. So if you enjoyed the reading, I would love for you to give me a thumbs up and subscribe. If any part of this reading really resonated for you, I would love to hear about it in the comments. I think that it's to me, it's really weird to like pick up on energy for people that like I don't know and I don't see. And so I'm always curious about like how this resonates for other people. I watch a lot of card readings on YouTube as well. And so I always try to comment, because sometimes like someone will say something like so obscure in a reading and it's like, you're talking about me. Like, oh my gosh, like this is so spot on. So if you have one of those moments, I would love to hear it, because I feel like those are my favorite to experience and kind of see from other people's perspectives, or it's like, yes, like, oh, I just love it. So yeah, group number 2, I hope you enjoyed your reading, and I will see you next time. Bye. Hello, group number 3. So if you chose this 6 of Swords card, in this deck it's known as the 6 of Bells. This deck is the Numinous Tarot. This is your reading. So I'm going to go through these cards with you. We'll kind of figure out what you're moving on and moving forward from with in this kind of next chapter phase of your life. So these cards are a little bit slanted because I don't have quite enough space, but I'll show you the cards up close so you can kind of see them. But the card that we're going to focus on is this middle card. This first card is the issue or the focus for your reading. And so this card is the Dreamer of Tomes. In this deck, the pentacles are tomes, which is like books. The Dreamer is the page. So pages are messengers. Pentacles are just a form of energy, time, money, abundance, the energy that's within us, the energy that we can kind of create. And so we've got this, younger looking person, and they are, kind of looking through this book. So with the purple that's in the background, to me, it feels like, well, we've got a lot of purple here too. To me, it feels like this kind of crown chakra, third eye expansion, like an opening. When we think of books, like we use books to learn things, we use books to kind of like record our thoughts in journaling and things like that. And so, the thing that you're being encouraged to not necessarily move on from, but really to move forward with is just creating more imagining like the new life that you want for yourself, like the new chapter, this next phase of your life, like the goals and things that you want. And I feel like this is really a time that you're being encouraged to kind of like, the word that comes to mind is play, but like it's kind of in this more mental imaginative space. And so it feels almost a little bit about like a little bit like daydreaming and fantasizing. And especially with the swords that are depicted in this card are these little wind chimes, bells. And so to me, like, I feel like that, when we think of that kind of wind chime sound that happens, it's usually something that's a lot more gentle. It's something that comes from like the wind blowing through, the chimes and these strings, and kind of creating this really kind of gentle, kind of ushering in. And so I say that because it makes me think of like with a lot of meditation teachers, they'll use like a bell of some kind, or even like a singing bowl, to create kind of a sound that almost like draws your mind's attention to the time and space, and kind of focuses your mind on something different than like that kind of endless mental chatter that a lot of us have going on, because the world we live in is like, you have to go, think, like move. And so I feel like you're kind of being called into this time and space of really starting this new journey of imagining, right? And I know I keep saying the same thing, but I feel like there's not really other words for how to describe this. Like, when we look at this boat, it's sort of, like, we can't see who's in the boat. It's a little bit different depiction than the traditional Six of Swords. But also it's moving towards this like kind of sunrise, brighter days. Also, we have almost what looks like a cliff here. And so it very much matches, the imagery of this card, which is, the Fool is a new beginning. And so allowing yourself to kind of daydream and journal and really kind of introspectively dive in to what you want for this next chapter of your life is what you're being encouraged to do right now. This card, the Fool, is the kind of internal space that you're moving into. And for you, I feel like it's really like this unseen, right? That you're not even aware that you're like diving headfirst into a new chapter. You might be aware that there's things that you want to have like differently for your life than the way they are now. You might be very aware that you're, you've gotten a little bit more introspective. You're spending a little bit more time by yourself. You might be journaling more. You might be reading more. You might just kind of be daydreaming and spending time by yourself. But I don't know that you're fully aware that like you're coming into like a really huge new beginning, a huge new chapter. Sometimes like we can go through phases, and it can be like the phase of moving from like 1 year of school to the next, right? Where it's like it's a big deal that we completed 1 year of school, but it's not as significant as like a graduation. And I feel like you're in this energy of like, not only are you graduating from something, but like you are moving towards maybe applying for this new job, or you're starting an internship where you're actually doing the work and you're showing up at the job every day. So it's this huge shift from kind of going to school all the way to like showing up in the workplace, even though, as an intern, you are still in that learning phase. But the action, like the tangible action steps of like going to school as a student, is a totally like different shift of like showing up in the job, even though it's as an intern. Like you have to pick out your clothes, you have to get there on time, you have a boss, you have all these people you don't know. So I feel like this Fool card is, it's signifying that you're coming into like a whole new chapter, a whole new thing. I hope that makes sense, and that you kind of understand like how big this shift is that you're coming into, how significant it is. I don't want to say big like to put pressure on you, but like that it's very significant that you're moving forward into something new. So I just want to say good job, because it's a big deal. The external thing that you are aware of is the Strength card. So we've got this person that is wrestling with this bear, and the traditional Strength card has a woman kind of trying to pull open the jaws of a lion. But when we look at this card, it's almost like this person is like hugging this bear, right? And we've got this kind of, gosh, it's almost like his heart space that's like, it's got like this light coming out of it and like this yellow glowing, and there's kind of all this energy around here. And the Strength card, it is really about learning how to be with these parts of us that, are a little bit more rough around the edges, that are a little bit more difficult to control. It's not about using our strength to force what we want to happen, because really, like, if you think about it, like, a man can't really wrestle a bear. This bear would tear him up, but this is really kind of metaphorical and energetic. And, it's about this process of like figuring out how to not only like wrestle, but also to integrate these parts of ourselves, because we can be like human and kind of beast, or like we can be like the lion and the lamb at the same time. Like, we're not just one thing, and that you're going through really kind of this unfolding process of like unfolding and discovery. Like, there are parts of you that are, are kind of like an onion, like in Shrek, where he says like, ogres have layers, onions have layers. We all have layers, right? We're all kind of unfolding, through different experiences. And as we go through things, like, parts of us kind of open up and unfold. And sometimes we discover parts of ourselves that we didn't realize were there, because maybe we haven't had that experience that kind of triggered that part of us to come alive or come out. And so you're, not only are you starting a new chapter, but you're really like coming into this stage of like deep self-discovery. Like, I know this isn't going to apply to everybody, but I feel like it's a very like young energy. So it feels like this might be for whoever this person is that's watching, like, this might be kind of kind of like a really significant shift into adulthood, into selfhood. Like moving from being a child to being an adult, moving from always seeking out other people's approval to really seeking out what it is that you want for yourself. So this is like, again, this is a really significant step forward that you're taking. And I don't say that to like put pressure on you, like, by no means, like, but for you to kind of understand that like you're really starting on this new journey, and that it can be really exciting and really foreign at the same time. And that even if it's like weird and foreign and uncomfortable, like, you can still find joy in it, that like, you don't have to do it perfectly. Like, that's not really how growth works. Like, there's no way to grow perfectly. The growing is the experience, and like the experience is where we gain like knowledge and wisdom. So every day that you're taking those steps forward, that you're like continuing to move forward and daydreaming and doing new things and like discovering more parts of yourself, like, that's what the work is. That's what the doing is. That's what the journey and the adventure are. So the next card that we have is the Understanding. This is really kind of understanding, not necessarily like why you're moving forward, but like understanding what is coming with the forward movement. And so the card that we have is the Ace of Tomes, the Ace of Pentacles. And so it's really this giant book, and it says Grimoire on it, which I don't know a whole lot about witchcraft, but I do understand that like a grimoire is kind of like, I think of it in my mind, and this could be totally wrong. So if you are more familiar with witchcraft and you're watching this, please let me know. But I think of a grimoire as kind of like a witch's like journal or cookbook in a way. Like the things that are really important to their witchcraft practice go into this book. And so, you know, as the ace card, the new beginning, it almost feels like you're inheriting like this, like because you're beginning your journey, like you might be starting to collect things into your own kind of metaphorical grimoire, or you might be inheriting that from someone. So, I think when we start a new chapter, a new journey, like it doesn't always mean that we're starting it by ourselves. You know, like you might be taking a path that's very similar to someone that, you know, is in your family or close to you, but you're not aware of it. So let's say, what's a good example? Let's say that you decide that you're moving forward and you want to move to a state that you've never lived in. And then you talk to your grandma and she's like, oh yeah, you know, when I was 25, I moved away from here, or I moved from this place to where we are now. And that's how we came to live here, you know, and maybe you didn't know that about her, you know, or, maybe you have like a friend that's also like in the same stage of life as you know, and it's like, yeah, I'm thinking about making this big move. And they're like, oh yeah, me too. And it's like, oh really? Okay, like great. And so I feel like, you know, like you're going to have people around you that are supportive. And I feel like you don't need that, right? Like you don't need someone to also be doing the same thing that you're doing. But I think it's going to surprise you to kind of see the synchronicities that are in your life as far as like the choice that you're making. There are other people that are making similar choices. And so I feel like there's almost like this like camaraderie, solidarity in that. And I think that kind of feels like the way that witches have covens. You know, they have their groups that they're kind of a part of, and they support each other and they learn and grow together. Like that's really what it feels like to me for you. Again, we've got the purple here, so there's a lot of like the crown chakra, like third eye. So this is very much tied into like your own inner knowing with your third eye, and like your own ability to see things for what they are. But also that crown chakra is the connection with source, right? Like those downloads, the information that might come in when we do open that third eye and we are open to seeing the signs and synchronicities, the messages that are around us, then it's much easier for us to receive them. To use like a library reference, since we've got, you know, the tomes, like these three you know, tomes cards here, it's almost like if you understand the way a library is set up, that they're going to have, you know, like signs hanging from the ceiling that say, or maybe signs on the side of the bookshelves that say like fiction, nonfiction, you know, biographies. Like if your eyes are open to kind of seeing that, then it's much easier for you to find the book that you're looking for. So that's kind of how I think of, you know, that kind of third eye crown chakra connection. And then the last card we have for your tarot is this Two of Tomes, which is Two of Pentacles. And this card represents the understanding, you know, the reason that like the reason that there is a need for you to move forward and kind of what's going to come out of this forward movement. And so this Two of Pentacles, Two of Tomes cards, we've got this one person with two heads. It looks like one head is feminine, one head is masculine. And they're reading two separate books. And to me, what it feels like, this card is very much about balance, but it's also about like rebalancing. And for you, I feel like you're being encouraged to move forward, you know, to really focus on like what your own daydreams are, what your own fantasies are, what the life is that you want to create. You're being encouraged to do that by yourself, because in the past you've always referred to other people. And I think that neither one of these is you, right? It feels like maybe the way that you've been raised, maybe your culture, maybe just what you felt like being a good child to your parents or good, member of your family was to consider what everybody else's input was for your life instead of just what you wanted. So, understanding that like in this moving forward, like you're going to be letting go of living your life for other people and you're going to start living your life for you. And depending on your background, like this might cause some waves. Like this card might represent your parents, right? Like they might have expectations for like what you need to do and what you shouldn't do and what they want for you, or they might be scared of like this journey that you're starting by yourself. And that's okay. You get the opportunity to decide, like, do you want to continue to try to rebalance your life and your desires to make them happy? Or, do you want to kind of get quiet and figure out what it is that you need for yourself, and also sharing that with them, that, like talking to them and explaining, like, I understand that you're concerned about this, and this, but these are the things that I want for myself. And these are the plans that I have, and this is how I plan to get them, and like this is my support system, and this is the research that I've done, and this is how I feel about it, because we aren't brought here to live our lives for other people. I think that a lot of us get the messaging that we're supposed to, but I think, like for you, it feels like if you ask these people, like, so do you want me to live my life for you? They wouldn't want that. There's not that expectation. I think they have a lot of fear, right? Because I think you are someone that's younger or like newer to this change, newer to taking these steps. And I feel like from this energy, it's like there's just a lot of concern. Like they need to know that everything is going to work out fine before they take steps. Like these are very cautious people, and there's nothing wrong with that, but not everybody lives that way, right? Like the Fool doesn't need to know the final outcome of things, because the Fool relies on, their intuition, their connection to source. Like they, they can't control where this lightning is happening, but they see this rainbow and they see the sun and they know they're supposed to leap, so they do, and they just trust that, like, the wind is going to carry them far enough out that they're not going to dive into the bottom of this cliff, that the water's going to be deep enough. And I think for people that are a little bit more cautious, sometimes that can feel like taking that leap is really reckless. But I think also, when we have this nudge and this desire to leap into something new, it's hard to kind of be with the people that are cautious, because they not only are they afraid for you to leap, they're afraid for you to climb up to the top of this cliff, right? And this is where you're moving in the direction of that cliff, because you got to climb up it so you can jump off to start this new adventure. So, just understanding that you're learning how to see and let go of like other people's expectations for your life, because like you're daydreaming what you want your life to be, and you're ready to take this leap and move forward. So the thing that you're being encouraged to leave behind is, this surrender to play card. And you're not being encouraged to leave play behind. You're being encouraged to leave behind this habit of being really, really serious and only focused on work. And like, the Fool is really about joy, and that like there's not anything wrong with play, that like, our minds and our bodies and really our spirits need time to just do something that doesn't have a purpose. Like if you work, like there's all these things that have to be done during the day when you're working. If you go to school, you've got a list of assignments, to complete and chapters to read and all these things. Like we need a break. And we also, need things to do that bring us joy. So the message of this card is take a break from overthinking a goal. Do something fun. Play is a time of recreation and rejuvenation. And so, when we look at this girl in this card, she's just kind of splashing through this water. She's just, she's just got her arms out. She's wearing a dress. Who gets in a little creek like that in a dress? This girl, because she's having a good time. Like there's no there, and that's what play is about. Like there's no point to it. There's no end goal. Like we don't get a prize. It's something that we do to give ourselves that break. It's something that we do to have fun. So you're being encouraged to leave behind like so much of that heavy seriousness so that you can make some time to play, which I mean, like, we've got her in the water. We've got this person jumping in the water. Depending on what the weather is like when you're watching this, or if you have access to some place that like has water that is maybe indoors, or even like sitting by the water, like that might be a message, for you. You might really resonate with being near water. So the thing that you're moving towards is this foresee card. And so, with this card, we've got this kind of spiral, right? Which almost looks like, to me, this looks like a clock in a way, because it's got all these like numbers in the hands. But also, when we start to do spiritual work, when we start to do personal development work, when we start to tune into our chakras and like tap in and grow, what we learn is that like the growth and the journey is not a straight line, it's a spiral, right? And so with a spiral staircase, like if you've ever actually been on a spiral staircase, like you pass over the same point at like different heights, while you're going up this staircase, right? Like, it's not a circle like a clock where it goes around and around the same numbers, but like it kind of moves up. So it's like as you're spiraling up, like you're gonna be going over the same kind of vertical points at different levels. I hope that makes sense. It's kind of like if you thought about like being in an elevator, like an elevator typically moves just like straight up and down, but it's going over different, levels, different floors. And so with that spiral, it's like we're moving, up, even though, like we might start here and then we're higher up, but we get back here and then higher up and get back here. So I don't know if I'm doing a very good job of illustrating it here. So I hope that makes sense. But, with this 4C card and this kind of spiral journey, I feel like it really touches on like all the purple in here, the crown chakra, the spiritual element of it, that like you're really at the beginning of kind of a very like spiritual journey. Like you might just be like opening up to your gifts. You might just be learning about your gifts. You might be really digging more into like learning about different elements of spirituality. But I feel like this is really what you're moving more towards, kind of realizing that like life isn't all about like how many hours you're clocking in at your job, and that like being aware of like the days that you allow to kind of pass by, and if that's really what you want for yourself, so with this like kind of daydreaming a new life for yourself, I feel like this this spiral staircase that's kind of going on and on, like this journey is kind of more of almost like meandering, which is kind of like to just wander, like you're moving forward, but you're not necessarily like making a beeline for the end of the staircase. You're just kind of wandering around and like following where it goes, and like, are we in a hurry? Like maybe not. And I think to go back to this card, like we don't see anyone steering the boat. We also don't see any oars, that are forcing and pushing this boat forward. So it's almost like if you're in a boat that's just kind of floating and like you're along for the ride, right? And that like you're in the boat and you're daydreaming, and kind of that fool energy of like throwing caution to the wind, that like I'll get there when I get there. and I don't have to force or push or, control to make sure that this boat gets there on time, because the time doesn't really matter. I'm starting a journey and I'm just going to enjoy myself. So group number 3, that was your reading. I hope it was, helpful. And I think that as, we're coming to the end of the year and starting a new year, we're going to start the year in a Mercury retrograde. So I feel like this energy that you have of kind of moving slowly, just like letting yourself kind of ease into things, I feel like that's really very aligned. And I love that for you. So if you enjoyed the reading, I'd love it if you would give me a thumbs up and subscribe. If any part of this reading really resonated or connected for you, I would love to hear about it in the comments. It's always my hope that this is helpful and that it resonates for whoever is watching, that it, gives you a little bit of clarity and a little bit of comfort, because I know that's what I look for, like when I'm reading cards for myself, just a little bit of grounding and a lot of clarity, a lot of clarity and guidance. Like, just let me know what to focus on today. So yeah, group number 3, that was your reading. I just want to say thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye. Hello, group number 4. So if you chose this 6 of Swords card from the After Tarot, this is your reading. This is your reading on moving on and moving forward. And so this deck, if you're familiar with the tarot, this deck is kind of, it's very much designed around the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, but it's all the events a couple seconds after the imagery of the original tarot design. So, in the original tarot, we've got this, fellow, and he's getting the ship to wherever it's going. And so in this card, we have the people that are here, and so he's getting off the boat, like the woman and the child have gotten off the boat, but he's carrying 4 of the swords. He's leaving 2 of them behind. And so I feel like the significance of this for you is that, with 4 of swords, it's very much a card of rest. It's also a card that can be seen as like a gentler version of the death card, because if you can think about the imagery of the 4 of swords, it's someone that's laying down and there's kind of 4 swords on the wall above them. It almost looks like they are asleep or dead, but they are asleep. They're not dead, but they are sleeping like in a church and like on top of a coffin. So I think that's where the connection to the 4 of swords and death comes in. And then the 2 of swords is, this woman that's blindfolded. She's holding a sword in each hand, but it's crossed over her chest. And there's kind of this feeling of like not being able to see everything and also kind of feeling stuck. So I feel like for you, one of the things that you're moving towards, you're moving towards rest, and you're moving away from something that's caused you a lot of confusion in the past. And so with the other decks, the other groups, I didn't feel inclined to read the card the way that I have for this one. I think, because, I did read kind of the meaning of the card, but this group was much more in-depth as far as this, because I feel like this segregation of the 4 and the 2, like that message was much more important to come out. So I've pulled cards from the After Tarot for the big part of your reading, and then we've got 2 oracle cards here. So the primary focus of your reading, the thing that you're being encouraged to move on from or move forward with, is this 10 of Cups card. And so this card, the 10 of Cups, is one of the happily ever after cards. And so we see this family here. We've got the 10 cups in the sky, and then we've got the family all gathered around, even with This little cat. I don't know. This kid cracks me up. Like I think it cracks me up because I cannot imagine my cats in front of like a bonfire kind of thing like this. I really can't imagine my cats outside because there's no couches out there and they are spoiled. So, I've got this whole group here, parents and then the grandparent, again, this card is a card of like happily ever after, but I feel like for you, like what you're being called to move on from or move forward from, or even what you might feel like you're wanting to move forward or move on from is family, and not necessarily wanting to move away from your family because like it's not that you don't love them, it's not that you like disagree with them, but I think it's kind of like that thing that everybody goes through where it's like, I'm ready to leave home. Maybe the town that you have been in just feels too small, or maybe it's too predictable, it's a little bit boring, you want some adventure, or you're ready just kind of to experience life independently as whoever you want to become. There also might be some things associated with your family where maybe there's a lot of family pressure and it's causing some confusion for you. You might have a really demanding family and you just need a break. You need some rest. This could even have to do with the holidays, because I know for like Thanksgiving and Christmas, or even like Hanukkah, a lot of families get together and, it can be a lot to host your whole family. It can be a lot to travel to your family. It can be a lot to be around your family. So this might not necessarily be you like leaving home. This might be you kind of re-examining like, how do I want to spend the holidays moving forward? Like, do I want to do that with my family, or would I prefer to just rest during the holidays and see my family at another time of year? So I feel like the focus will kind of come out, or the details will kind of come out a little bit more. But what I'm feeling is that you're really being encouraged to move forward independently, to move on, and kind of move away from your family or your family's expectations, or even just living so close to home. So the internal influence or the unseen thing that you're not aware of is this King of Wands card. And so with this King of Wands, the King of Wands is about action, but he's about very precise, calculated action. Like the King of Wands moves quickly, but he isn't like frivolous or flippant. Like he has a lot of wisdom and a lot of experience, and that's why he makes decisions quickly. We've got this little salamander here that's like looking at him, I think all over his cloak. He's got the salamander, but the salamander kind of represents this makes me think of the word guile, which is like agility, like the ability to get out of sticky situations. And so like with salamanders, like if they get stuck, if they get caught by a predator, like they can lose part of their tail to salvage the rest of their body, right? Like that tail will grow back. They're also really fast moving. And so, I feel like you you might just be somebody that is really good at handling difficult situations. You're really good at taking care of things quickly, and you're also able to save your own ass as needed. And so this is something that you might know about yourself. This is something that like others might not know about you, but this is definitely like a skill. It's a talent. And I feel like the word or the phrase that's coming up definitely with this card is calculated risk. That you know exactly how to figure out like which risks are worth taking and which ones aren't. And the ones that you take, when they get a little squirrely, you're still able to get out of it. And so I feel like not everybody can do that. Like I know that is not me. I'm a very strategic person. I am pretty risk averse. But there's some spontaneity with this card too. And even though his face is really, he's got this really serious look on his face that like, you don't mess around, but I can't think of the phrase, like, the thing that's popping in my head is the Transformers theme, More Than Meets the Eye. Um, so I'm hearing it in that like weird robotic music sound if you're familiar with it. If you're not, then I probably just sound like a crazy person. But people underestimate you. Maybe they don't underestimate you. They misread you, right? So because we have a tendency to like judge a book by its cover, and so the initial the initial impression that people get from you does not match who you really are. And I think that has nothing to do with you, but I think that you probably have something come up a lot where people are like, oh, I didn't expect that from you, or I didn't expect you to be like that, or oh, that's surprising. And so this is kind of like a normal thing for you. So this, internal thing, it's something that you're definitely like aware of, but it's also very much like a skill and a benefit. And so the external thing that you are aware of is this Six of Pentacles card. And so with the Six of Pentacles, it's really a card of like generosity, and almost reciprocity in a way, that this person has done all these things to earn this money and that people need it, and so the generosity is in giving, right? But the reciprocity of it is that like when we give things, when we offer things to people, like we also learn something about ourselves, right? Because like we don't know much about this person. Like they could be giving money because maybe this king is coming through and they want to show off. They want to be seen as generous. Like, oh, look at me. I'm donating this money. I'm such a good person. Or they could just be deciding to give money because, they haven't always had things and someone gave to them and they felt like this is kind of like this karmic cycle of giving. And so they want to give to others. Also, like in this deck, the author talks about like this card or this person looking like the hermit, and so the hermit is, this older fellow. He's got this cloak of invisibility on. He has gone into the mountains by himself. He's got a lantern and he's just kind of wandering by the light of his lantern, taking these really deliberate, slow, small steps. It's a very much an inward journey, an introspective journey, to discovering who he is. And so, this hermit, like he's part of the major arcana. He's kind of, I was gonna say he's kind of a big deal. He's very much like a revered figure, in the tarot, but like he presents himself in such a small way that this person doesn't know who this is. So it really makes me think of it makes me think of the biblical phrase. I'm paraphrasing and I'm not a religious person, so forgive me if you are. What you do for the least of these is what you do for me. So this was, Jesus Christ saying like that whatever you're giving to the people that are seen as like the least of you, like, and he was talking about people that were like poor, people that were, not able-bodied, like people that were just really like had fallen on hard times. They had really hard circumstances. He was saying whatever you do for them is the equivalent of like you're doing that like to me. You're offering that to me, right? And so he's, in Christianity, Jesus is this really revered figure, obviously. And so like I say all that that like when we share parts of ourselves, when we offer things to others, like we don't always know who we're offering it to. And, that also shouldn't matter. Like it shouldn't it shouldn't be like, oh yeah, I'm going to make sure to give to this guy because he's the hermit and he's a big deal. Like wanting to offer something to someone with the same intention and the same energy that you would offer to someone that you care deeply about. And I feel like this kind of generosity is like, I think this is something that you know about yourself. Like, you know that you are a very generous person. I don't think that you really understand the impact of the things that you do or what you give. And I feel like this is kind of part of your journey. Like, you're learning as you're going out into the world, like that, you know, you've got, maybe you've always been around your family and they think you're amazing because, you know, that's what families should do. Our families should cheerlead us and they should, you know, love us more than other people that don't know us. But sometimes, like, when they, you know, when they tell us things about ourselves, like it might not feel the same as when we get information about us reflected back from the people that don't know us very well. And so what it feels like to me is that, like, when you're out in the world, like, you're going to have experiences and learn things about yourself that, like, match a little bit of who you knew that you were, but are also going to show you, like, parts of yourself that you didn't realize, like how powerful and impactful that you could be. Which I feel like is a really beautiful thing, especially to come out of moving away from kind of this, like, safety, right? To move out into the world that can be kind of rough and difficult, and to see, like, oh wow, like, I can make a really positive impact out here. The next card is this Four of Cups. This is the resolution. So this is what kind of a tangible action step that you can take around, you know, this issue or focus of moving away from your family. And I think it's really like a feeling that, like, being in your small town, being with your family, being around the things that feel a little too predictable, a little too normal, like, you've kind of taken it for granted. And, you know, in the traditional tarot, this kind of cloud, which is God, source, spirit, brings this cup over. It's kind of this floating in the sky, and it's like, hey, I'm offering you this. Like, you have these three cups that you are not interested in, and I just want to offer this to you. And so as this, you know, kind of higher being floats away, this person's just dumping out the cup. And so the Four of Cups, it can really be a card around, like, dissatisfaction, you know, like, not necessarily disappointment, but, like, nothing's really a big deal. Nothing's really good enough. Nothing really matters. Not in, like, a big sense of, like, existential dread, but everything's kind of meh. And so, like, with him dumping this cup out, it's like, how many cups have you dumped out because, you know, because it just wasn't good enough, or it wasn't what you wanted or what you expected or whatnot. And so I say all this because I feel like you're needing to move away from what is comfortable and predictable, because it's not too good to be true. Like, it's just too good, right? Like, it's too easy, it's too good, there's no challenge, and, like, it's kind of left you dissatisfied. That, like, you know, you're almost like you're looking for some kind of adventure. You're looking for some kind of big shift or change or excitement, which I totally get. I feel like that's why a lot of people kind of move away from, you know, where they're from and where everything's predictable. And so this is just really kind of encouragement that, like, if you're feeling dissatisfied with the way that things are, like, there's not any need to continue to pour out good cups of water. You know, go ahead and move on, move forward, move towards that thing that lights you up, as well as move away from what has kept you really, really comfortable to the point that, like, you're okay with wasting good resources, if that makes sense. This final card is the understanding, for kind of why, like, why all of this is happening, like where you're going, like what's meant to come. And so this card is the Page of Pentacles. And so pages are messengers, pentacles are time, energy, money. I think that there's the things that you need to fulfill you, the things that you need to accomplish, the things that you want to accomplish, like they're not going to happen where you are right now. And I think you already know that, right? That like you need to meet new people, you need to have new experiences. You know, you need to kind of be able to, this is a very peculiar thing to say. You want to experience challenges by yourself, right? Like you're tired of things being so easy. It's not enjoyable, you know? And like the King of Wands, like he needs a challenge. He needs some kind of gosh, what's the word? Stimulation. Sorry for yelling. He needs some kind of stimulation. He needs something that is going to challenge him. He needs something new. He needs variety, you know? And so pages, you know, they bring in messages for us, but also like they want adventure, and very young at heart, very young energy. Like they want adventure just like knights do. You know, knights like a little bit more danger. I think, you know, they want to slay the dragon, but pages just, they want to explore. They want to see what the world is like around them. They want to meet new people. You know, they want to have new interactions. And so, you can't have those new things staying where you are. And you already know this. Like, I feel like a lot of you for this reading, it's not going to be anything that's like profound that you didn't see coming. I feel like this reading for a lot of you is more just confirmation that like, yeah, it's okay. It's okay to leave your family behind, you know, that like, is it going to be hard for them? Maybe, you know, your mom's probably going to cry, you know, your sister might be sad, you know, your grandma might be, you know, a little bummed out that she's not going to see you every Sunday, but you know, you've grown stagnant being here, you know, and that you have things that you need to learn about yourself. There's new things that you want to do. You know, you're kind of tired of being stuck in this, like, what should I do? Should I stay? Should I go? Should I stay? Should I go? I don't know. And I think, you know, like being by yourself will allow you to kind of rest, in a way that almost like instead of rest, it feels like reset, you know, that you need a reset. And so the thing that you're being asked to surrender is negative thinking. The message is you have control over your thoughts. When negative thoughts surface, say thank you for sharing and quickly refocus on positive affirmations. So I feel like this negative thinking is really connected to this, right? Where it's like things are so boring here and like nothing exciting ever happens and it's always the same thing every day, and that your mind is kind of like, well, it doesn't matter where you go, it's always going to be the same. And it's not necessarily true. You know, that like I'm also curious if these negative thoughts are coming from someone else, you know, like if it's someone that doesn't want you to leave. So they're almost like, well, you don't know what it's like out there. It's really hard to find a job. You're not going to make friends. Everything's scary, you know? And so I would encourage you to kind of think about like when those negative thoughts come up, like, are they yours and are they true? because I think a lot of times, like, we can have other people's voices in our heads and not realize it. And then we can also pick up on things that are not ours, but we take them on like they are, right? Like, we might hear something about an area, you know, that maybe we're thinking moving, and we hear things that, like, oh, there's so much crime there. It's really scary. You don't want to move there. And we don't do our own research, but we're like, oh yeah, there's a lot of crime there. And, like, we repeat it to other people, even if it's, like, not factual, because we haven't fact checked it. So the times that, like, those negative thoughts come up, I would just invite you to question, like, are these my thoughts? Are these my words? Or, you know, where are these coming from? And the thing that you're being encouraged to move towards is relaxation. And I would invite you to also consider, like, just dreaming big, you know, because this moon makes me think of sleep and, like, these stars and, you know, just kind of dreaming, wishing on a star. Also, we've got this, you know, the two boats here, you know, and, like, again, this, you know, getting off the boat, and this Four of Swords, like, focusing on relaxing, resetting, you know, resting. And so this card again, to relax, just, like, it really tells me, like, once you move on and move forward, you're going to be moving into a space where, like, it's a lot easier for you to relax, you know, and to rest and to dream. And I think with this kind of dissatisfaction card, like, he is in a posture of resting, but I think that sometimes, like, when we're dissatisfied, we can be dissatisfied in doing nothing, and that's not restful or relaxing for us, right? Because we're frustrated, we're uncomfortable, we might not be, like, busy, we might not have a lot of demands on us, but it's like, this just doesn't feel good. This doesn't feel good, and I want to leave it behind, and I want to move towards something that really resonates more with, like, my dreams and what I want for myself. So, group number 4, this has been your reading. If you enjoyed the reading, I would love it if you would like and subscribe. If there's any part of this reading that really resonated for you, I would love to hear about it in the comments. I always hope that these readings are helpful, that they provide, like, clarity, some kind of guidance, you know, because when I pull cards for myself or I watch other readings, like, that's really what I'm looking for, is, like, you know, some clarity, some confirmation, and just even, you know, even some encouragement that, like, I'm moving in the right direction. So if you felt any of those things, I would love to hear about it in the comments. And I just want to say thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye. Hello, and welcome to my reading. So, as usual with the readings, I like to offer you guys my own personal reading. So this is my Six of Swords, moving forward reading. So first of all, I want to say thank you for watching. I know that I have been gone for a couple months. It has been a whirlwind. I started a master's program. Working full-time and going to school is hard. I started and ended a relationship. It was very brief, almost 3-month relationship that taught me a lot of things about myself, about relationships, and also about how I have changed. Oh, sorry, I'm moving the camera. About how I've changed a lot in the last, I think year or two since I was in a relationship. It also taught me that I really enjoy being by myself, and that I still have a lot of work to do. And that's okay. But so thank you for being here. Thank you so much for watching. If you are new, thank you for coming back to watch these readings. If you are a subscriber, so if you have enjoyed the readings and you would like to give me a thumbs up, I would love that. I would also love if you would like to subscribe as well. So yes, okay, so on to my reading. I used a couple different decks for my reading. I used a Kawaii tarot deck for the primary part of the reading. It's a really cute kind of cheap deck that I got on Amazon, but I like the illustration. It's fun and it's very basic. So this is the deck, the Kawaii deck, and then this Oracle card deck, which is literally called the Oracle card deck. I got both of them on Amazon and I use them for my own daily readings because I like the illustrations, and then also the tarot cards are really simple, so it kind of helps me just like tap into what the message of the card is instead of like having something that has a lot of illustration. Sometimes that can kind of distract me. So yes, on to my Six of Swords reading. So the center card is the issue or focus. So the issue or focus for my moving forward reading is the Four of Pentacles. So what I'm being called to do is move on from a mentality, kind of mindset, a really kind of a lifestyle of this lack mindset. So the traditional Four of Pentacles card, there's someone that's really clutching on to the pentacles, like they have one pentacle under their feet, they have one kind of clutched onto their chest, and then the other two are very close by. And so this card is really about like there not being enough resources. There's not enough time, there's not enough money, there's not enough energy, there's not enough. And I feel like that is a mindset or a belief that came from my upbringing. Also, you know, having a parent that's an immigrant, growing up, you know, there was always kind of this conversation around like money it's so hard. You have to work so hard for money. It's so hard to earn money. Money is so hard to come by. And having parents that had two different kind of mindsets around money, you know, my dad has more of an abundance mindset where it's like, whatever you need, we will provide it for you. Whatever you need money for, it will come. You know, and so kind of having both those messages, like I didn't really ask for a lot. And I also kind of took on this belief that like you really have to like struggle, hustle, grind, like really just like work really hard to earn anything. And as I've done, you know, a lot of personal development work, like I realized that has kind of held me back from a lot of things. Like it's kind of morphed into this like belief that like I'm not enough and there's not enough, so just don't ask. Like either I don't deserve it or it's just not available. And so that's definitely something that I want to move away from, because like that's not true. You know, when I look at my life and I look at all the things that I've done, like I do work really hard for the money that I earn, and like I am really privileged that like I don't have a lot of lack around me. You know, I know that I also have circumstances that are not like other people's, you know, where it's just me. I don't have a partner, I don't have kids. So it's like, I have a lot of control over my own finances. You know, I know that that's a huge privilege that not everybody has. You know, like if I had children, there definitely would be things that like, you know, that are kind of in my mind, like financially out of control, right? You can't limit how much like food your kids eat necessarily, you know, like maybe snacks and things like that, but it's like they need to eat, right? Because they're growing. You can't you can't control whether your kids are going to grow out of their clothes or if they lose things, you know. Like I remember being a kid and like just like losing I'm an adult and I lose things, you know. So I understand that's a huge privilege, but also realizing that I kind of operate in the world like I'm not enough, and like I know that that's really a wound that a lot of people struggle with. And so I don't want to hold on to that mindset, because I'm really more than enough, you know, that like I know what my talents and my abilities are, and I know that like any place that I offer my energy, there's a lot of value that comes with that, because I'm not a frivolous person with like my words or my intention or my energy. Like I'm not going to give advice when I don't know what the hell I'm talking about, because that's just me. Like I wouldn't want someone to give me like kind of flagrant useless advice based on like fourth hand knowledge, you know, that they heard from someone that doesn't know anything about whatever they're talking about. You know, and that like I'm very intentional. I think it's probably my Capricorn rising. That like being very responsible and like understanding that there's a lot of power in my words and the things that I say. So like if it's a maybe, I'm probably going to say no. If it's a more than likely, I'm probably going to say yes. It's a yes, I'm absolutely going to say yes. And if it's a no, I'm absolutely going to say no. So understanding like those things about myself, have really kind of shown me that like, there's no need for me to feel like I'm not enough or I don't deserve what I'm asking for. And I feel like most of us are like that, right? Most of us that kind of have this like not enough wound, like when we get to the point where we want to ask for things or we know that we deserve something, like we're not asking for the whole world, right? Like we're asking for something that's fair and that like is something that we deserve. Like if we know that we're doing $90,000 worth of work a year, those of us that have like a not enough mentality are probably going to ask for like 85. So I'm inviting you to, if you know that you're working harder than like you're getting paid to work, I fully support you asking for that raise, and asking for something higher, because like there's so much of the way that we work has to do with negotiation, and that like if you ask for $100,000 or if you ask for like a $20,000 raise when you really only want a $10,000 one, you might look out and get a $15,000 one, right? But if you know that you're asking for more, but you have your breaking point, then you can kind of negotiate within that. But you also have a place where it's like, nope, I will not take less than this. So, advice that you didn't ask for in my reading. Maybe this is advice for me. Maybe I need to ask for a raise. But so this is the focus, that like there's this not enough, there's this lack mentality that I need to move on from, that I need to move forward away from, that I need to leave behind. So the unseen influence is this 10 of Swords card. And so when I was looking at the cards, I was like, no, I am fully aware that it's been a kind of hard year for all of us, but like also for me, it's been kind of internally a hard year where there's been a lot of changes and just kind of uncertainty and it's been like a metamorphosis year. But I pulled this card because this is very much how I've been handling it. So like you can see she's got her little iPhone, and like this card, there's artwork that the artist that did these cards, you can purchase a print of this card is what I'm trying to say. And at the top, it might be at the top, or it might, instead of 10 of Swords, it might say it's fine. It's fine. And I feel like that is very much like how I've been operating through this year, where it's like, it's fine. It's fine. I'm just gonna scroll on my phone. I'm gonna play random games where I just crush little blocks. Like I'm just gonna, like things are not the way that I want. I feel kind of stuck. I'm just gonna distract myself from it, right? And so I feel like this card has come up because it's like, internally, I know that it's been kind of difficult. I know that it's been painful, but what I haven't really acknowledged until recently is how I've been distracting myself from it, and how I've just been like, it's fine. It's fine. It's okay. It's not a big deal. I just am gonna go to the grocery store with these 10 swords in my back. Nobody's gonna know, right? So this is kind of the internal message that like, hey, you got to stop doing that. And I agree. Good one, universe. So the external influence that I am aware of is this Wheel of Fortune card. And so I was listening to a tarot podcast. It's called Wild Soul Tarot with Lindsay Mack. And the card that she pulled as the primary energy for December is this Wheel of Fortune card. And so I feel like this is a really great depiction of what she was talking about, where she was saying that like in the kind of traditional teaching of the tarot, the Wheel of Fortune is kind of seen like flipping a coin, right? So it's like, it's very arbitrary where your luck is going to land. And I feel like with this Wheel of Fortune kind of game looking card, where it's like, I think most of us have seen that game, like they spin the wheel and like sometimes they get bankrupt and then sometimes they win, I don't know what the top prize is, let's say $1 million. But most of the time it's like somewhere in between, right? Where it's like, oh, you got $50, yay, or it's like, it's something. But like, if I'm looking at like what I want my fortune to be, I don't want $50. Like I want $1 million Vox. And so she talks about how like the energy of the Wheel of Fortune is very much different than that. And the way she describes it is that like our job is to be at the very center of the wheel, knowing that it's always turning and it's spinning. And so if we kind of don't look at this little part right here and we look at it like a merry-go-round where it's like things are spinning, like our job is to stay at the center, and try to keep ourselves centered and grounded so that we don't get flung out and like off the wheel. But also, you know, the wheel is turning and it turns faster because there's things that need to get yanked away. So it kind of reminds me of, I don't know, like, I watch a lot of CSI. Like, I think it's called a mass spectrometer, and it's this device that kind of does this like vibrating, shaking to separate particles, separate elements from each other. And so it almost reminds me of like a carousel or like a merry-go-round, like on like a playground where it's like the kids always try to like spin it faster so that people kind of fall off. And so kind of the same concept. If you can stay in the center, the likelihood that you'll be yanked out by the centrifugal force is much lower. But, you know, I understand that there are things in my life that are shifting and changing that are much more internal to me. Like there's things that I am kind of coming to internally accept, knowing that like, okay, gosh, what's a good example? Like I did not realize until this year that I'm a creative person. Like I would never consider myself a creative or an artist, but I've always really enjoyed like creating things. Like I'm a social media manager for a nonprofit in like my normal life. And so what I do is I create digital content, I create words, I create messages. And so I don't think of that as being like a creative person. Like to me, creative people are people that like can paint something that looks like an identifiable thing. That is not me. At least I thought. You know, like I don't really know how to draw, or at least I thought that. And so one of the things that like in this turning of the Wheel of Fortune is that like I've had this kind of desire to like create. And the more that I've like created, the more I realize that I've always been a creative person. So I have another YouTube channel that I started doing tarot card readings during quarantine, like back in 2020. My cats were much more involved and it was much more chaotic. But you know, once the quarantine ended, I had to go back to work and I didn't have the extra time, but I learned so much about like video editing and like sound editing. And like, I also had a podcast. Like I was creating all the things, but like if someone was to call me a creative person at the time, I would be like, no, like I'm not very creative, because like that was this mindset that I had. And so like what I realized is that like one of the things that I'm kind of moving away from, one of the things that's shifting for me is that like is accepting that I'm a very creative person. And so that acceptance is kind of this internal thing. But, you know, like one of the things that's kind of being flung away is this belief that I'm not creative, and that like you have to be Van Gogh to be considered creative or to be considered an artist. And that's really just not true. Like we're all creative, you know, like we're all creators in our own way. Like if you're a cook, if you cook food, you are a creator, which means that you're creative, you know, like you've taken these ingredients and you brought them together to create a thing, but you put your own like flavor, your own spice, your own spin on it. And that's what makes you creative. So, I apparently I'm on a mission to to bring people onto this creativity bus with me. Like, get in, loser, we're going to create things. Because this year has been so hard collectively, like we need that play. I need that play. At least I know that I do for myself. I live in a really rural area also, and I kind of don't really fit in. And that's been this other like internal thing that I've been dealing with, of like being an adult and like not really having friends where I'm at, and like what does that mean about me, and like what does that mean about the world, and like kind of seeing that a lot of people feel that way, but also that like I can kind of be dealing with things and still be able to have fun and like play, even if that's by myself, or even if that's like sharing things with my friends that don't live here, you know, or like finding things online, finding ways to like connect with people who also create online. So that Wheel of Fortune card is like, it can be slow, but it's like a big change, like a big turn that's happening. And that like that Wheel of Fortune, it's always turning. And it's always turning to bring about our best, highest good, even if it doesn't feel like it at the time, right? Because the first couple things that like I created in Procreate, I was like, wow, this looks like something a 5-year-old made. And maybe my inner 5-year-old was like, I'm here for it, you know? And as I've kind of watched more videos and like practiced and done more things, it's like, wow, I'm pretty not bad at this. And also it is like super, super fun for me. Like I really enjoy it. So if you are looking to get creative or do something fun, I highly encourage you to do that. So ask for a raise, quit being on your phone so much, and do fun things to create. Okay, so this next card is the resolution. So this is really kind of the action step out of the whole reading, you know, like how do I overcome this issue, you know, and kind of understanding like the influences that the issue has on me, and then how do I come to some kind of resolution? How do I move forward? What steps do I need to take? And really, to me, this is confirmation that I'm doing the things I need to do. The Four of Wands card is a card of foundations. And so like in the traditional tarot, it's kind of it's known as like a marriage card, a commitment card, also a graduation card in a way, like kind of a celebration of new beginnings and like new foundations. And so like in the traditional tarot card, there's 4 wands that are all standing up, and there's kind of these little like banners or like things that are surrounding or connecting the 4 wands. And so it sometimes there's 2 people under the little creation of, I don't know how to describe what it is. It looks, I should have grabbed the other card. Too late. Anyway, it kind of looks like a party or a celebration. Like it could be a wedding because there's 2 people under there. But really, the card, you know, like when we think of like a table, right? A table has 4 legs, and those 4 points balance the weight of whatever is on the table. Kind of the same as buildings. Like most buildings, traditional buildings have, like especially high-rise buildings, they have the 4 corners, right? So they've got those 4 main pillars, you know, as well as like supporting pillars. But the action that I'm being encouraged to take in moving on and moving forward is to establish like a really firm foundation for myself, like a strong foundation for my future, which I feel like is just kind of encouragement for what I'm doing, right? That I'm working on my master's, like I'm looking at where I want to move to, because I got to get out of this rural area. Well, I've known that like this is not my forever home. That this is a place I came to kind of do a lot of internal work, which I feel like I've done, but I'm ready to get out of this cocoon and fly like a butterfly into like a different chapter of my life, a different time. So long-term planning, like looking ahead, kind of all the things that, you know, kind of come with when we graduate from a program, right? When we graduate from high school, that's this ushering into like being an adult. When we get married, like we are, you know, forming a union with someone else, and we're going forward to make a new life. So that's really what that message is. The understanding for like why kind of all this is happening, or really like why I need to move on from this lack mentality, is the Hanged Man card. And so this Hanged Man card really represents being stuck. Sometimes we can be stuck because the universe needs us to hold still. Sometimes we can be stuck because we got ourselves into a bit of a pinch. And so in the traditional tarot, the Hanged Man has like one ankle kind of cinched up in something, but he's got his hands free and he's got his other leg free, but he's just kind of hanging, right? So like maybe he got snatched up and he's trying to get his bearings, like, okay, how did this happen? Who did this? How do I get out of this? Can I get out of this? You know, but like with this Hanged Man, he's super playful, right? So he's kind of sticking his tongue out, and to me, this very much feels like the universe saying like, hey, I had to get you, I needed you to hang tight where you are because there's things that need to be put into place, right? That, you know, going back to this Wheel of Fortune card, like we're asked to stay in the center because the universe is kind of spinning this wheel, but also like if we just stay centered, the universe can work out the how and the details and like lining things up. And so a great example of like the universe kind of having me stay where I am is that, you know, I had looked at a couple places that I wanted to move to, and like they just didn't feel right when I started kind of digging into like all the boring adult stuff. Like I said, I'm a Capricorn rising. People say that Capricorns are boring when we can be, but we are highly responsible. And if you need a responsible friend, you always call on your Capricorn friend. But so looking into like, you know, what are state taxes like, looking at like property taxes, looking at like just different things. So for instance, like I had looked at Colorado, and like their property tax is insane. It's really expensive to register a car, but also there's all these things that come with it. You know, like you get free entry into all the parks and like just different things like that. And it's like, are those things that I want? Because they're not, like, it's not optional. Like you pay all this money and you get this thing, but it's like, do I want that? And as someone that likes nature, sure. But, you know, kind of looking at some of these other things that are important for when you're moving to a new place, right? Because like most of us don't want to move again once we've moved someplace. And I'm a Cancer sun, so like I'm a little crab, right? So it's like you think of like hermit crabs, like they need to line up a new shell before they moved out of their old one. So like I'm not just gonna move somewhere and like figure it out. That is not my nature. Like I like to have security. I like predictability. Like I said, I'm boring. But I also don't want to move again once I move. So the universe kind of kept me in this kind of feeling of like stuckness, right? Where it's like, well, I'm not ready to go and that doesn't feel right. You know, and understanding that like I'm a feeler, like I make decisions based on the feeling and the intuition. Like if it doesn't feel right, if it doesn't feel like 100% good, then it's a no. So went on vacation with one of my oldest, bestest friends. And while we were in the place that we were at, I had posted something on Instagram when I came back. And so a person that I worked with at my last job, you know, she was like, oh my gosh, are you here? Like, can I take you to lunch? And I was like, no, I just left, but I'm thinking about moving out there. Turns out, you know, and I had asked her, like, do you know of a realtor? Like, do you personally know of a realtor that you've worked with, you know, that you could recommend? And she's like, actually, my brother-in-law. And so it was like, to me, like the alignment, right? That like knowing somebody that's already out there that I trust. And also that like, you know, when we worked together, like we weren't, like we had a good connection, but we didn't work together long enough to really develop a friendship. But like, I feel like, you know, she and I would be friends. So it's like to move someplace where there's someone that I trust their judgment, that I would love to be friends with. And also like to have, like to get connected with a realtor. And he and I talked, and he is just a delight. Like, you know, he sent me information. And so it's like, oh, you kept me stuck because you needed essentially like you needed to buy time for everything to align for this to happen. Right? Because like I was looking at visiting Colorado this past July. And so I just took my trip in November, right? So it's like sometimes like the universe is like, I know you don't like it. You don't like being upside down. You don't like being uncomfortable, but I need you to stay put because I need to move things out of the way. So you just stay in the center. Just focus on your little Procreate and drawing things. Like make your plans to go visit your best friend and let me sort all this out. So yeah, so that's the main part of my reading. And this definitely resonates for me because I have felt very stuck, but I've also had some really great things come out of that like stuckness. The thing that I need to let go of is things that no longer serve me. And I agree. But I feel like the tricky thing about figuring out like what no longer serves us, like it's easy for people to say that to us. I've had like lots of coaches say that to me, like, well, what doesn't serve you? And it's like, not a whole lot, you know. And I'm, you know, at the time, like I think I was probably in some like unhealthy stuff, but I wasn't ready to move on from it. And so I feel like the tricky thing about moving on is that like the boat and the ferry person, like the boat driver, they're not going to tell us to get in the boat. They're not going to tell us where to go. You know what I mean? Like they are just driving that boat around, and it is our responsibility to get to the boat dock. And sometimes like we can see, you know, let's say we're like up on this little hill, like we can see the boats coming and we can realize like, I'm not ready to get in the boat. You know, we can get to the boat dock and the boat can come up and we can say, I'm not ready yet. You know, or we can even step a foot in and be like, no, I'm going to get out. I'm not ready to go yet. I'm not ready to go. And so I think it takes us all in our own way time to get to our Six of Swords moment. And so I think the thing I love about this card is that in the traditional Six of Swords, like there's this little front part of this boat and all the swords are right here. And so it's like almost configured in like a kind of triangle shape. But in this card, it doesn't look like all the swords are really stuck in there. It almost looks like the swords are like bars in front of her. That like all these things that it's taken so long to like let go of, or it's taken so long to move on from, or it's taken so long to accept are not serving me anymore, became like a prison. Like it became like these prison bars where it was like, oh, my mindset that I'm not enough is what's holding me back. Oh, listening to other people giving me advice that they don't have any place to give me is holding me back. Oh, like realizing that I'm in a relationship that is not healthy for me and not knowing how to get out of it without hurting this other person is holding me back. Oh, being too scared to move is holding me back. You know, it's like we all have these things, and that like it takes us time to come to terms with the fact that things are no longer serving us, right? That like we can know that it's not a good idea to eat ice cream every night before bed. And we can see the number on the scale change. We could feel our pants getting tighter, but sometimes we can't stop ourselves from doing it because it serves a purpose, right? And I think I think I've talked about it before in videos. Like I don't want to say that I feel like I still am like an emotional eater. And so it's like when things are hard, like I will go to food. Like if something really kind of not great happens, like really negative, you know, kind of hurtful, like bitter happens, like I will go to like something sweet because I need that sweetness. I need that, like, I need something to counteract the bitterness that I'm like feeling or experiencing. And so for me, it's like I've always gone to food. I think that was something that I kind of learned in my childhood too. And also I have a sweet tooth, right? And it's like, I can know that it's not healthy for me to like eat ice cream every night. I'm lactose intolerant, so ice cream is not it for me. Like definitely pastries, brownies, love a cookie. I can know that like it's not serving me, or it's not for my best, but it might still be serving me, right? Like I might not have any other source of like sweetness or support or kindness in my life except for that food. And so it does still serve me, even though it's not good for me. So I just wanted to share that because I think when I saw that, it was like, yeah, that's so simple, but it's actually not that simple, right? Like we can know that something is not good for us, but it does still serve us and it's hard to move on for it. So, or on from it. So whatever that's worth to whoever's listening to this, because if you made it this far, it was a long reading. And so the thing that I am moving towards is that I don't have to fit in. And I love that there's little tattoos on their hand, because look at, well, almost, eventually, next month. But like, I feel like this has been a big part of like my not enoughness. Because like as a kid, I got a lot of, even as an adult, like I think really until I stopped talking to my mom, frequently, like I got criticism about how physically I'm not enough. And really the message is that you don't fit in. Like, why do you have all those tattoos? Why is your hair so short? Good Thai daughters are skinny. Good Thai daughters have long hair. Good Thai daughters are not loud. Good Thai daughters are quiet, you know? And so it's like all these kind of gender norms for the culture of Thai women that I did not fit into, and having those reminders that I didn't fit in really kind of made me feel like you're not good enough. The way you are, who you are, the way you prefer to present yourself in the world, the way that you like yourself to look is not good enough. And like, it took me a long time to kind of deal with that and like come to terms with that. And I think I mean, I'm 43, so I'm just now in the last couple weeks, I feel like fully feeling like I don't have to fit in, and that like the way that I look now is the way that like I've wanted to look for a really long time, but like wasn't brave enough to look that way, or wasn't allowed, you know, like I had a job for a long time where I couldn't have tattoos on my hands. You know, and I think a lot of people work in spaces like that as well. And so like, you know, this kind of tug of war of like wanting to present myself the way that I feel like I am, and then, you know, not being allowed to, or not being accepted, or really just like wanting to fit in, right? We all want to fit in. We all want to be accepted and included. But yeah, moving towards this message, this confirmation that like I don't have to fit in, and it's okay if I don't. So this was my reading. This is my Six of Swords moving on reading. So I just want to say thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for coming back after my long absence. And if you enjoyed this reading, I would love it if you would like and subscribe. If this reading resonated for you, leave me a comment and let me know, because I know there's a lot of us that like struggle with this not good enough thing. I know a lot of us struggle with like moving on when we know we should, but we can't because we don't want to, because we're not ready yet, as well as just kind of having a difficult 2023. Intuitively, I can't say that 2024 is going to be better, but I do feel like it's going to be harder for the masses and for the institutions not to see the reality of things. And I think that sometimes there's a lot of benefit to having open eyes, having lots of open eyes, even if that causes some more kind of conflict and chaos. But I just want to encourage myself and encourage anybody that's watching to, you know, just know that in the times that it feels like really chaotic and not good and terrible, that like everything is temporary, that those are the moments that we need extra care for ourselves from ourselves, and that you always have permission to make a boundary and kind of share with whoever needs to hear it that like I can't do this right now. I need a break. Need to step away, give me 5 minutes, or like, you know, like opting out of social media, opting out of conversations, you know, doing the things that you need to do to take care of yourself, in case you didn't realize that you were allowed to do that. Just a friendly reminder. And that, you know, I hope that you have the time and space to slow down and rest and relax as this year winds down. Yeah, and that you just take good care of yourselves, because I'm trying to do the same. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.